So let's clone Dice Roller Service. It's not Android app. Use IntelliJ to clone it, not Android Studio. Cloning is exactly the same. Click Code, copy, open IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate, click Get from Version Control System, paste URL that we just copied, and click clone. No, that directory already exists. Yes, because I forgot to create folder. Because we need to create folder when we clone, right? Dice Roller Service, Command C, Command V, clone. Trust project. This program will be explained in details in the following course that you will have in the winter of 25. Okay, so this is server, and details will be explained later, but I will do a quick overview so it doesn't look mysterious what it's doing. I ignore it, just close it. If you click install plugin, it doesn't help in any sense. So what this program contains? It contains server that provides data, and it contains client that is written in JavaScript that picks the data from the server and displays it. So it is not just server. It's also client. But this client is sent to browser, so it's running in a browser. So technically, we have client and server. So let's run it. You already had some web courses, right? I assume. Are you familiar with jQuery, right? Yes? Yes or no? Somewhat familiar, okay. So this client application is written in jQuery, using jQuery. So now it is running. Next, go to localhost 8080, localhost 8080, and press enter. You will see some result of the roll. For dice, total number of dice 4. If you select number of dice 2, click roll, it is rolling 2. See, rolling 3. So this program is is jQuery. It could be done entirely in a browser. It doesn't need server at all because it's so simple, right? But it was done as a demo for communication between JavaScript and server side. Data that it sends, it is quite elementary. It is just results of the roll, total number, and number of dice. But in real life scenario, sometimes we do need data from the server. For example, I don't know, weather data, for example. Some data that is shared between different devices. Like user wants to maintain to-do list, but accessible through web and through tablet and through phone. And this way you will have to put it on web somewhere, right? So this way, the only way to share this in any sensible way, right? So sometimes we do need to have a server, right, for obvious reasons, and this is an example of such communication.
Okay.
So let's open JavaScript folder. In the JavaScript folder, there is local storage, raw data, main. Let's open main and see what is there.
Yes. Indeed.
No, maybe raw data. Let's open raw data. Raw data, it is just,
PRPG20082.
what's this?
Yes.
Let's make raw data, base it on values. Okay, fine. Local storage. Let's go back to main again and scroll it carefully. Oh, here it is. It is at the bottom.
As the
Request role data. Get JSON from the address API/role dice. So this is localhost. Because it is running on the same server, so it is localhost. So this will be location of the data where this JavaScript is sending a request, give me the data. And data is coming in JSON format. Are you familiar with JSON to some degree? Yeah, in some course. So data is coming in JSON format from this address. And what does it send? It sends number of dice as a request parameter. This function is executed, this given function, it's a callback, that will be executed when data is received. And after this, it is calling display raw data and save. Save is showing previously saved data, so if you open this program, it's not sending request right away. It is displaying previous raw data.
site ultimate.
So let's go to that address in a browser, API local API/role dice after 8080. So let's put slash and say API role dice. Here it is. So let's zoom. This is the data that is received when browser send request. So how browser communicates to the server, like default way, like to retrieve HTML or to JSON? It sends request and waits for response. When response comes, it displays data what comes. And if request is sent by JavaScript, it's received by JavaScript most likely, and JavaScript will process it and make a page. So this is what jQuery was doing. Program with jQuery is doing. But this request is sent directly by browser to the server, and server is served, provided the data in JSON format. If we send request again, reload button will send another request. We got this data. And also this program is displaying logs, whatever is generated, to make sure that it is for debugging purposes. And you see it is exactly the same data, 566, total 17, number of days 3. So this is for debugging purpose. You also see that we sent number of dice. How it goes? It goes as a request parameter, and request parameters go after question mark as key value pairs connected with ampersand. So this program is using number of dice 3 by default. If we want to have data for any number of dice, not any, it goes up to 5. I have a limit in this program. Artificial limit, I put if. So if it is more than 5, just use 3. If I provide parameter a number of dice, for example 4, and press enter, I misspell it. number of dice. Am I right? Number of dice. 4. Why does it do 3?
Maybe 2.
Number it is case sensitive. So browser keeps correcting it to small letter. How to get rid of it?
2. Yeah.
I misspelled it once, and now the browser tries to correct it to
So this uncast at the bottom into like ones and
what?
you while you're at the last three type things select off bottom it should like go all right and it'll choose their reflections what
Option at the bottom. What do you mean?
typing to do or up
Ah, okay, I got it.
we'll find it not
Yeah.
red.
You mean when I do that, I click this. Now it's working. Yeah, thanks. Good idea. So browser was trying to correct because it thought that previous was right. So this is with 4. And what did I do? Provide parameter, right? When we receive data from a server, we better know what kind of data format is received. Sometimes we can do it with the browser or print it with the browser, but it doesn't always work nicely this way because browser doesn't have it in foldable option. You cannot fold it if data format is quite complicated, curly brace inside of the curly brace, inside of arrays containing curly braces. Since browser cannot fold data, it is not always immediately obvious what is the structure. So for this reason, other software may be useful. Not maybe, it is useful. For example, Postman. We will install it probably at the next lesson and play with it.
Yeah.
Postman is just one of the software options, and it is one of the best. Use it for debugging, testing, debugging applications, or to check what server is actually providing. It can send any data and receive any text data like HTML, JSON. And also it can display it like a pretty way in foldable format, so you can fold curly braces or arrays to make sense of the data that is received.
Okay.
Why do we need to make sense of the data? The reason is that when we receive the data in JavaScript or in Android, we need to process it. And in order to process it, we need to know what we actually are about to receive. Where to pick the data in JSON, essentially. Approach is different between what you saw in jQuery and Android. It is for internal reasons, and the way how is both are designed. And what is interesting is that Angular in the ideas is closer to Android, perhaps because both are Google products. And what we see in jQuery, in this jQuery code, this one, we call function, give me the data with this parameter and call this JavaScript function. In this case, it is just defined here. You see this one. But I could provide name of the function elsewhere in the file. So instead of calling function right in the place, I could just list name of the function and write function just below. This approach is called callback, and it's actually saying that, you see, callback. What is the advantage of it? Yeah, it's this kind of the most simplest way possible. It's the most simplest way possible to deal with delay. When we ask for data, it may take time to get it, right? And while the program is waiting for the data, it should not freeze. It should stay responsive. So what happens in the browser? When we call this function, this one, request raw data, this function will send request and return immediately. It will not freeze the screen. When data comes, system will call provided function, and data comes as a parameter, and this function is taking care of displaying the data on the screen. As this always works, unfortunately, this idea will become messy if program is complicated. Because if program is complicated, what people say, like Google programmers, we tend to have in a large program callback functions inside of callback functions inside of callback functions. So logic of the program, structure of the code will be hard to make sense, and it will be harder to change. So although callback approach is the simplest possible that works, it is quite awful from a code organization point of view. Perhaps, and most likely it is the reason why Angular and Android is not doing this by default, but it is still around. If we want to send requests this way from Android program, yeah, we can. It is just a bad idea, but we can. Why it is a bad idea? Again, for better organization of the code, we should separate data layer from GUI layer, from business logic layer, right? And providing function that updates GUI in data layer is technically impossible. So if we use this approach, we cannot really have data layer. We have some functions that will receive data and update GUI. So we cannot separate data into layers this way. And also we cannot maintain data separately, maintain program layers separately. Unfortunately, this is default way of doing or accessing data from Firebase. Google provides cloud service. Designed it for, it is part of Google Cloud Platform. It's called Firebase. Firebase is part of Google Cloud Platform that is targeting mobile development and simple web application development. They provide APIs for Android, for what is Angular, for JavaScript in general, for iOS. What else? Flutter and Flutter.
Yes.
I'm not sure about Flutter because I didn't use it, so I cannot really say. And so far, only Angular is doing this by separation layers, because this is a package created in Angular. Google explained how to create data access layer is in intermediate kind of approach, but you will have to write your own code to separate it. So, why does it do it? Because it is simple as possible, and it is, the idea applies to different platforms without changing. Google created internal logic for Android programs like suspend functions, like flow, state flow, view models, but all of this is Android specific. If we go to another platform, we will not see the flow, state, suspend functions, and so on. So they cannot really define they cannot really define API for their cloud service, Firebase, in something which is Android specific. If they want it to be available to iOS, to web, to JavaScript, and so on. So they provide a callback interface and hope that people will deal with it by porting it. They provide instructions how to deal with it in a nice way, and we will talk about it at the probably next lesson or next week. How to deal with callbacks, how to convert them to flow, how to convert callbacks to flow.
Sure.
A way to find information like with the example that is doing it. In the beginning of the course, I posted in week 1, I posted course resources. In course resources, in the end, there is blogs. Maria Coelho. Building Android app with Jetpack Compose and Firebase. So this is Firebase, this is what I mentioned. And unfortunately, so far, I know only one example that is actually showing how to do it. It is this one. Google just explains it in pseudocode, but without actually providing example, and this is the only example that is doing it. When you click on it, you will realize that she's slowly, tediously, step by step. It is quite long tutorial. She wrote it for half a year, so it is quite long. Explains how to do to-do list. So to-do list using Compose exists, but don't use this code. It will take far more time to port this code than product list. Okay. The reason is that she is storing data on cloud, so obviously there are some cloud stuff, but cloud stuff is relatively easy to separate, so it's not an issue. Because she is great in terms of separation of layers of the app, separation of concerns, so the code is quite good this way. But since she is an engineer at Google, her code is complicated, really, really complicated, unlike tutorials. Right? So I don't recommend using this for your assignment in any sensible way, because it will take a really long time to make sense of it. Although she tries to explain it like in steps and quite long. So also there are some animations. Don't ignore it when you have time, just read it. So it's not bad. Another issue that when we store data on cloud, we do need to log in. And I already mentioned login with login and password. And I already mentioned that login logic is not straightforward. It deserves extra special explanation. And this is why I don't have it in your assignment 3, because just extra complexity. And she has to deal with extra complexity because she's storing data on cloud. This also makes the program more complicated. So for these reasons, although you are absolutely welcome to watch it, it's not top secret, it's on web, right? You can borrow ideas, but in my opinion, for assignment, product list is more useful because it is far simpler code than hard code. Okay. But yeah, to-do list does exist. And open source, obviously. But this is storing data on cloud. Unfortunately, currently it is the only program that is showing how to do Firebase with flows. Others are just two callbacks. So this is, it is last tutorial here on the link. No, first tutorial in blocks. Sorry, not tutorial, in blocks. And this is quite long. A lot of reading, a lot of coding, so.
Good.
And code is extremely complicated, in my opinion. Not extremely, but quite a lot complicated. So let's go back.
Yeah.
So a browser sent request and it is receiving a response.
Yeah.
How to deal with it nice way? If we send request, we can send it using view model, for example, view model scope, and we can start coroutine. View model scope launch and ask for data. And if the suspend function waits, who cares? Because it is concurrent task. We are not holding GUI. So this would be the simplest approach, actually. It won't involve any flows. Is to launch task with suspend function, and while this concurrent task will wait for data, cool, because it's concurrent task, it's not freezing GUI.
Yeah.
So this is what Mars application is doing. It is sending request as a concurrent task, and just concurrent tasks waits for response. Also, when we do it, we have to deal with one extra complexity because of network errors. For example, if server is down or takes too long to respond, your program will get error. And it shouldn't definitely crash if server is down. It should display some error message. So there is also extra layer of complexity is to deal with error messages due to network errors.
Back, please.
A program for this Mars application does have it inside. We will see. It is quite interesting approach there. We will see. What this app is doing, Mars application, it is
bad.
Sending request, receives data, and displays the data. It is not storing data anywhere. Technically, it is not what Google recommends. Google recommends to store received data for future reference if program is offline. Your program can determine, like, if network is not available, or network error, it could display previously stored data instead of showing error message. For dice roll, it won't work because we want random roll, right? But for news, it's actually better to show old news than error message. Or you can show old news and some warning that this is actually old news. So what is definitely missing is storing data. So Mars application is not storing data. Next week I will provide program that is storing the data So it is, instead of displaying this right away, it pushes the data to database. And if program is pushing data to database, what would be right approach? Push data to database and display the data, what is received, or display data from the database. Actually, the second is a lot easier. Also, it follows like single source of truth recommendation. If you push it to database, it will be the owner of the data that is displaying, and data is displayed from the database, from the owner. If we display received the data and push data to database, who is owning it? And it will be a duplicate of the data technically. We will have some variable for current data that we just received, and also data in database, right? So this will go against single source of truth principle. So next step is, for next week, is to learn this data flow. When data comes, it goes to database, and we display it from the database. Unfortunately, Google doesn't have example in the course, so I will pick an example from textbook and I ported it myself to new libraries. So it is from the textbook example. I will explain it. I don't want to go through explanation of the program. The reason is that it will be explained in the course in the future, but it was just some hands-on, like a request-response exchange. I will port it Dice Roller Android program either at home or in class in front of you. I will think it depends on time, and we will have it this way. Questions? No. So for this program, let's just close it. It's done. And next step, it was also a demo for callback. And now let's close this IntelliJ and clone example from Google using Android Studio. I'm talking about Mars application, Mars. So from exercise, I didn't create link here. In exercise 10.1, MarsPhotos. Code, copy, Android Studio, get from version control.
This is good. Okay. Okay. That's it. Is
Open,
helps with this.
Control V. Otherwise, I will forget what it means. Yes, there is about MarsPhotos. MarsPhotos. Okay, let's clone it. Hopefully it will still work. Let's don't update libraries right away because updating libraries might break it. So we will run it, see how it works. I will go through the code, and after this we will play with changing libraries. Trust project. It will pop up window asking, do you want to update stuff? No, not right now. In many cases it goes smoothly, but in many other cases it just breaks.
So,
What else is missing? There is no refresh option in this app, absolutely. This is definitely missing feature. technically it's not necessary because they don't change date on the server, so it's always the same. But we need refresh feature to learn how to do it, right? So they don't have it in the app. Do not start upgrading because this may break it. So let's run this app and see what it's doing. There is one reason why probably refresh feature is missing. I will talk about it. This is kind of weird. This is missing here, actually. So it's starting, and now it is loading state. So it has 3 states: loading state, displaying state, and arrow state. So state of the GUI is actually 3 states. So what you saw before, it was loading state, now it is OK state or whatever, success state. And arrow states will happen if we go to settings of this emulator and turn off network access. This is how to imitate arrow of network. And this way we will see message like cannot access data or something.
Yeah.
When we click on image, there is no detail screen, and I already explained why there is no detail screen, because how to do detail screen is explained in future examples that we covered before. There is no option to refresh it, and drag and standard drag refresh does not work because there's no code for it in this program. So there's no refresh. And why there's no refresh? A refresh, we can do refresh button, or we can do swipe refresh, right? Most applications do have swipe refresh. Like email list, for example. You open email application, you swipe refresh, you get new emails, right? Issue is that swipe refresh had bug that was for about a year. And they fixed it only in December, the bug. So swipe refresh didn't work for a year, last year. So maybe this is why it's not there, because they didn't have it available.
Yeah.
It happens to Google sometimes, and they create insane mistakes, and it takes a while to fix them. For example, in Angular, you know that in Android we can have cards, right? Like to display items on the screen. Like this is probably inside of a card, right? And card has elevations. We can, and actually elevation defines shadow behind card. So it appears like it's elevated, but of course it's flat. It is just imitated by shadow. Google has issue with this elevation in Angular for already several versions, and they still didn't fix it. This is so insane. Elevation of cards stopped working in Angular 15. Now there is 18, it still doesn't work. Shame on them. Swipe refresh stopped working when they switched it from Material 2 to Material 3. And it didn't work for an entire year. Hopefully it is working. I don't know. I didn't try. Maybe it's still broken. But at least it was information that they fixed it in December. So when I was teaching this course in fall, we couldn't do swipe refresh because it doesn't work. Okay. So this is how program behaves. So let's see the code.
The code is.
By the way, what is also new, besides getting data from internet? This program is getting images from internet as well. So it's not just getting data, it's also getting images. It is using library called Coil that behaves like a browser for images. It downloads it and maintains local copy. So next time when program displays images, it doesn't download it again. So if I stop this program and run, this program will not re-download images again. It is stored in the program. It's typically like how browsers do. This program is Coil. There is another library, popular library that is doing it. I forgot what it's called. 1 second. It's called Glide. This is Coil. That is called Glide library. Both of them are nice, but Coil is a higher version with a higher number version with Compose. I assume it is better with Compose, so this is why it's done with Compose.
Oh.
Also, for getting data from internet, there is there are 3 approaches. When we receive the data, we don't really have an option. We use a library called retrofit. So in order to send request and receive response, we use retrofit library. And this is default, and there's no other option in Android at least.
Yeah.
But what happens next, we need to process the data. So we need some library that makes sense of received data because it is received as a string. So we need to make sense of the string which is received. And there are 3 ways to deal with it. There are 3 common libraries. One is called JSON, not JSON, but starting with letter G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That G. That stands for Google. JSON. It is one of the approaches using JSON library. And it is fine, and it happens in some Google examples. Another option is to use Moshi library. Moshi library is not Google product, but it is better product. It is developed by people who left Google and developed JSON library. So some developer decided, okay, we are leaving and we won't have another product similar to what we created. It is called Moshi. Also, extremely popular choice. Unfortunately, last year, I remember it was bugged. That was also for a while not fixed. But it still works fine. It is just has some bugs that we can go around.
Yes.
And what this is doing, it is third option. It is using Kotlin serialization, deserialization feature to convert received data to objects. So technically, there are 3 options that can be used to make sense of received data. So let's see. I am opening Gradle scripts, and first let's look at global. What kind of settings they have. This is standard, right? Android application, Android library, Kotlin. Nothing specific. Let's see what is inside of app.
Here.
They use serialization plugin, and this for Kotlin serialization. Remember, I mentioned that they use Kotlin serialization, deserialization to make sense of the code, make sense of the data that received by retrofit. So let's scroll and see what other things they have. They use 1.8 version, but if we use Hilt, it's better to switch to 17 because Hilt works better if it is 17. More reliable.
Yeah.
And this is older format because this project was created with previous version of Android Studio. But what do we see inside?
Red.
This is standard stuff that comes with Compose, right? Compose U model, Material Design 3, and so on. This is retrofit library. This is what I mentioned. It is used to send request and receive response. And they use serialization of Kotlin together with retrofit. So they have a library for the converter.
Well,
Last time I checked it, in many cases, this converter library is already included in this. It is strange in many examples when you delete this library, retrofit, it still works because it is included in converter. I'm not sure about this particular example, but in many cases it's working if this is deleted. And they also have a separate serialization library. And this is plugin into retrofit, and this is separate Kotlin serialization. Previously, this was alpha, so I didn't want to mess with it. So I changed it to Moshe, and okay, let's keep it Moshe library. Maybe this year it's good to switch from Moshe to Kotlin X serialization because it's not alpha anymore. So why not? What else? Nothing else. So they added retrofit and they added serialization, deserialization. Also, just because this program obviously, I missed coil library. This coil library, it is for downloading images directly from internet. In order to, this program needs just web address to display image. Not program, this library just needs web address to display image. It is quite automatic. So it is comfy to use. Another obvious thing that we need to be aware of with such programs is manifest file, scroll, access to internet. Because Android programs do not have access to internet by default. We have to provide this explicitly. So in any program, an Android program that is accessing internet, we need to open manifest if we want to create program and give it access. Also, there is in some cases, we need to also edit access for encryption. I think it's about version of Android 11 or close to that, like 10, 11, or maybe even before, like 9, in that area, right? Close to 9, 10, 11. Google changed security settings for Android app. So Android app cannot get data unless it is encrypted. So it's Android system doesn't let it. So you need to explicitly allow your application access to not encrypted data unless program will just crash. Because by default, it has to be encrypted from the server. I mean HTTPS protocol. So if we try to access data not through HTTPS protocol, like JSON data, by default it will crash. We need to also change settings of the app to allow it. So another thing is to be aware, if server is not able to provide HTTPS protocol, you will have to add feature into your app. Otherwise, it will keep crashing with security exception. So let's see what else is interesting in the code. So this is about libraries. Obviously, this is older format of the libraries, what you saw. It is not how it looks in the project that you just created, brand new project. But it is a relatively straightforward conversion.
Yeah.
So let's browse through the code. What time is it? Maybe we should have a break before we actually dive into the code. So let's have a break.
Please. Leave here. Bye.
So my approach to explain it is to start with view model because it is kind of in the middle. From the view model, I go down to data access layer because it's a new topic. And once I explain data access layer, I will go up from view model to basically explain how GUI is working. A GUI is not fancy, as you see. It is just displaying matrix of images, and pretty much it.
Right.
And title. So let's find view model of this page, and it is only one page. Java, oh no,
Yeah.
it's here. Right.
This.
A model, we discussed it in the previous lesson, is an object used in displaying. But it is not strict, or they also use it as an object to
That. The history now.
retrieve the data. These kind of objects are called accidentally the same, and in perfect world we should create objects to retrieve data, objects to display data, and objects to store data, even if they're the same and we copy data from one between them because of the future. If in the future some data format is changing, it won't propagate to other parts of the app. They definitely not following it. So this is how they retrieve the data, and this is also used to display the data, if I remember correctly. So let's check. So in main activity, they call MarsPhotos app, right? They have a surface. They don't have what's this called, scaffold here, but they moved scaffold to MarsPhoto app, I believe. MarsPhoto app has a scaffold, you see. That is joining title, and they call it home screen.
And
since it's manual dependency injection, they had to create factory that is provided to view model. So a factory, it's objects creating other objects. So in this case, factory will be used by this view model function to create view model if it doesn't exist. Otherwise, it will find it and ignore the factory. When we port this application to Hilt, we will not have a factory. So let's find view model. A view model is called Mars view model. So it is probably, yes, it is in screens. It's only one screen, Mars view model. So what is inside? Let's see. So they didn't create separate state class. They didn't create state class as in separate file, as they typically do. Google sometimes can combine files into one file. Perhaps to make it shorter, like fewer number of files. And also, in my opinion, it makes it harder to find where is this particular piece. So in my code, I have more files, but they're shorter. So what do they have? They define it Mars UI state. It is UI state for this view. And it is sealed interface. What does it mean it is sealed? It means you can create implementations of this interface only if it is listed inside of the class
And that
or inside of the file.
walked out. They found it.
If it's not listed inside of the class, inside of this interface, it's fine as long as it is inside of the file. So this is definition. They decided to do both. Why not? And it does make sense of what they did because they call it success. Success of what? Success of loading Mars UI state.
That. Jen.
They have arrow, also arrow of the state, right? And loading state. They have objects because it is kind of a label. They don't need to create it, to call it constructor because
I got.
Because they just assign arrow object and this is fine. And they have data class because it will contain array of list of MarsPhotos objects. So UI state stored in view model have three conditions or three options. It is either loading state, and loading may end up with arrow and or success. And success will contain a list of objects that refer to images. It has address of the image on web, so it can display image. So Mars U model.
So,
They do not use stateful. If they load the data to database and display it from the database, the best way is to use stateful for internal reasons. So they do use shortcut, so they use just state. You see, with delegation, mutable state of load state initialization. It is initial value of the state, loading state. Also private set, it means you cannot change it from outside of the class. So GUI should not change the state, it should display the state, right? So this is why it's private set. When view model is created, system is called constructor, right? And this init, it's a part of constructor, right? So what they do it? They call get MarsPhotos.
yeah.
What this function is doing? It is a function of view model, I believe. Let's find it. Here it is. It is launching concurrent task in view model scope. It makes sense in view model scope because it is not maintaining data anywhere outside of view model. So if we close the app, it will stop loading. Or if we go to another screen, it will stop loading. So in this case, it makes sense to start it in view model scope, concurrent task, and they change state to loading. Again, doesn't have to be, but they do. Right? Initial state is loading anyway.
Yeah.
What happens next? They call get MarsPhotos from the repository, and this function can throw exception. Why? Error, network error. Right? Network error may happen, so this get my MarsPhotos may throw exception, and exception in this case code either here, IO exception or HTTP exception, two kinds of exception. And when they're caught, Mars UI state would be error, and when it's not caught, Mars UI state will be success. So as we see, In Kotlin, try and catch can return the data, similar to if.
What?
This is the logic of UI main view model. So where this is coming from? So this is where data is coming from, a repository. A repository is injected into, I believe, injected? Yes, it is injected into constructor, right? Manual dependency injection, and it is stored in as private variable. We already learned that view model is created by the factory in this program, so let's find the factory. Unlike in previous example, they decided to create factory directly in the same file. Yeah, it's a choice. So they created companion object inside of the view model and implemented factory inside of the companion object. It may work if app is simple. Otherwise, it's better to keep it in one place as factory provider. Remember this in previous examples. So a view model factory and initializer is creating a view model. So what do we have? As before, we ask for application class. So they created application class for globals, MarsPhotos application, that is storing container. And container will have references to the objects that are necessary for injection. Container is initialized inside of onCrate. This is how it was done in the example for, what was the example? It was a demo for push, pop, what a stack demo, right? As the same, I created app container. I call it data container. I call it app container. What is the difference? No difference. App container, and where it is probably in data folder. Here it is, app container. So what is inside of app container? They store repository the same way as I did before. So this repository is initialized, but initialization is a lot longer because this repository needs to access internet. Unlike previous ones, it was just the local database. So what happens here? In initialization, so app container, this is private variable, it's location of the data, so we can copy it into browser to see the data for curiosity. So let's do that. No, it's not. We need to add application JSON to this address. Slash paste application. Oh, no, sorry, not this one. Scroll, scroll, scroll. It's not here. Mars API service. It's not this one. I'm looking for particular folder. It should be, it is in network, Mars API service /photos. So this is added to this address, com/photos. Here it is. So this is array of objects. Every object has ID and address of an image, so it's not very fancy. So JSON is, you previously learned that JSON is always one object. Could be array or could be just regular objects that contain other stuff. So since this example is quite primitive, so they decided to use array of objects that contains two fields, ID and address of the image.
Good. Yes.
So let's go back to container. So in the container, they create a retrofit object using retrofit builder. So retrofit is used to send and receive data. But they need other library for conversion data to objects. So this library is added as a converter factory. Here it is. And depending on the library that you use, this part will be different. So this would really be depending on the library.
And think,
So they use serialization, deserialization of Kotlin, and this is what copy-paste for it.
basically.
Base URL, it's a folder of all addresses.
Good.
If your program is using several addresses, it is, I would say, it's that contains everything, the biggest one. And that contains everything. And
That
additionally, addresses that your programs are using, depending on request. For example, you send different requests for different data. They will go into service. A service is interface, so you create interface that system will implement. Who will implement? Retrofit library will implement. You define functions retrieving the data, and you mark it with addresses to retrieve the data. If you send parameters, it will be parameters given as parameters of functions. Mark it with, I believe, with annotation query. I believe it's called query parameter or something like query parameter. We can look it up. So if you have more than one kind of request, you will have more than one kind of function declaration. So this interface is used to define what you want. And is with database, you don't need to implement in this interface yourself. A system will implement it, and who will implement it is the retrofit. Going back to app container, where is implementation? When we call retrofit object create and and provide reference to that interface. So this is name of that interface. A retrofit object will create implementation of this interface. Lazy works exactly the same way as before. So this part will be initialized, this retrofit service will be initialized when we refer to this object first time.
and
So this retrofit service will be used inside of repository. So next line, here it is, a repository. We call repository and parameter is retrofit service. So repository will call function get photos of that service. And repository most likely will have a reference to that implementation of this interface stored in the repository. So let's see. MarsPhotos repository has function get MarsPhotos. Right? But in order to do that, it needs a reference to the service. You see, it's a private function. And when we call get MarsPhotos, we actually call get photos from the implementation of the service.
okay.
And they define it repository and repository implementation. A repository is interface and implementation it is just separate class.
But I take it.
So this is how web part works. So let's see how GUI part works. In the home screen, this one,
But
we have three choices, right? Depending on the state provided by view model. So let's go one step above. MarsPhoto app, it is this one, is getting view model, and view model is given, no, not view model, state from the view model is given to home screen. Remember that state can be in three variants: error, success, and loading. So this is either error or success or loading. So home screen needs to make a decision based on the state what to show. So this is what happens in home screen. And we use when, which is easier. And we're checking type. If type of this object is this type check. A loading, we display loading screen. If type is success, we display list of photos, this. If state is error, we display error screen. Right? And also, error screen contains retry button. So retry action, it's probably given to view model, repeat. So this is probably in view model, it will retry with retries. Most likely it's calling get MarsPhotos for retry. So let's check. MarsPhotos application, no, MarsPhotos app, this one. For retry, it's called get MarsPhotos. So mystery solved. Why we after retry set loading? Because of to wipe off error. Remember that in Mars view model, this is kind of mysterious because initial state is also loading. So they use get MarsPhotos for retry. So when arrow is displayed, we click retry, it will show loading image, loading screen. So it is the reason why they have it here. This is Lambda function calling get MarsPhotos from arrow screen. So for the loading screen, it just shows image of this rotation, loading. What it is, string resource. Loading, it's a message, and our drawable loading image, it is this. It's not, doesn't do preview because it's animation. Okay, whatever.
So you came back.
Going back.
Stop.
Arrow screen contains image and retry button. And on retry, it's called retry action, which is load images. Function call from from view model.
Yeah.
The most interesting part is probably this one, which is success, right? Because it displays the stuff. So let's see, find it where it is. Arrow screen. photos grid screen. It's probably call it from success. Let's success. No. Photos grid screen is called here. It is success, right? So when state is success, it is calling photo grid screen. So what is inside of photo grid screen? Parameters list of objects. So they use lazy vertical grid to display it.
We show them. Little.
Body is passed there.
Clear photo.
So they use items inside of the grid as before, right? I remember we used items for column, lazy column. So approach is similar, right? So it will run loops through photos. Key is optimization for list and for the grid. So system can easily compare objects that are displayed. Since objects ID inside of the object is unique, so instead of comparing objects, it can compare ID, so it's more efficient. And we display card. Card is another function, probably defined below, that is corresponding to card. Okay, so here it is card, which is card, and async image, it is composable provided by COIL libraries that displaying data from internet. It is not just displaying image, it can display loading icon, arrow icon. So if we want to use these options, we provide, here it is. This is icon for arrow, this is icon for image is loaded, and this is description, and this part is taking data from this piece. You know, I looked at this before, and this line can be done shorter. Why did they do it this way? I have no idea. I forgot particular thing how it was done. So they use image request builder for current context to get the data that corresponds to the source. I think it was a lot simpler, something like this. Something like a source image or whatever, some parameter. I will find it and I will tell you, because this can be shorter, but whatever, it works. Because I definitely remember using it with a lot shorter option. And this is pretty much it. Where would they find it? There are some examples where I use it. Let me think.
Yeah, but there's a little more exciting idea to the web.
I will find it and I'll tell you. There is a shorter.
Then
But anyway, it is copy-pastable.
I think
Any questions? No? So let's see how to convert it. Now we have about 1 hour. So let's see how to convert it using Hilt. Right.
Get to the
So developerandroid.com and look up how to use Hilt because we need to copy-paste stuff. We are lucky now because developerandroid.com provides copy-pastable lines for this version of this project, not the newest. So we can copy-paste it as it is, import it afterwards. So first let's try to update it. How to update? Let's try to update Gradle plugin first, because we will include the latest Hilt library, so we better use latest Gradle and latest compiler for Kotlin. So we need to change that part. When we update Gradle plugin, it will update Kotlin compiler. So let's do that. Find tools, AGP Upgrade Assistant. AGP stands for Android Gradle Plugin. Okay. Tools, AGP Upgrade Assistant, and it is the same that was popping up, but now it is here. It is better to do it in steps. But it suggested 8.13 to 8.51. It's a lot. It's a big step. But okay, let's see. If it breaks, we can roll back because there is rollback option. So let's run and see if it still works.
yeah.
Okay, let's do build clean project and build rebuild. And hope it still works. Okay, let's run. Cool, we didn't break it. Nice.
Yeah.
Next, go back to upgrade the system the same way, because after upgrading, it may require additional, because it is doing this in steps. And run it again. Refresh. It's still latest, cool. We do have latest. Next, let's open the libraries and see what kind of updates it suggests.
No,
This is what it upgraded. This is 5.1. This is not the latest. We have to be careful about this number, because this number, this particular one, is related to this number in some non-trivial way. In order to know relation, we need to go back to developerandroid.com and find what kind of, this is compiler for Compose. What is the latest and how it relates to Kotlin version. Okay. This is not automatically updatable, and if I update this one, it may break because of that number.
Sure.
So let's try. This is probably latest. This is also complaining about this part. We can figure it out this later. Let's stop it rebuild and see clean project, rebuild project.
Yes.
You see? What happens? It says version of compiler for compose is not compatible with this number. Okay. So I did figure it out which one is compatible by looking through developerandroid.com. One way to deal with it is to find it at developerandroid.com. So where it is. Compose compiler. Versions. Compose compiler, Jetpack.
No.
Current version is 1.5.14. It's perhaps compatible with the latest Kotlin. Let's see. Let's change it to 14 and hope it will work. One 5.14. 1.5.14.
That is.
Build, rebuild. It works. Okay. So when we change Kotlin version, we need to be careful about this one. To change this one. And now it is working. Another thing, when we add additional libraries, we may have to change this to 17, because some of them require 17. So far, it didn't come up yet. So let's open. This is fine. Now we will deal with this later. For app, let's scroll and see. This is definitely not the latest, so let's change this one. Change this. And see if it helps. Okay. There is an easier way to deal with it because I already have the latest numbers for product list. Because we could just copy paste it from product list. Okay, let's rebuild project. Synchronize. We have to synchronize. Sync project. We changed libraries, so we synchronize. Also, there are other libraries. I didn't scroll till the end. So let's do that again. Let's do this. Change. Change. Synchronize. Okay, let's rebuild. Clean project and rebuild to make sure that it is doing fine. Rebuild. Something is deprecated, okay, whatever. That is not. This is the project files. When project is recreated with newer format, this will disappear, this deprecation issue. So here it is. Clean. Okay. And now let's see healed libraries. Because now we converted to healed, we need to know what to copy paste for the healed. So search healed.
Wait.
Yeah. Dependency injection with Hilt. Use Hilt with other Jetpack libraries. We need this one. So Hilt requires this piece in global file. Since this is older format, it is copy-pastable directly. So this is global, this is AP module. So I open global, and I copy-paste this piece here.
That's just turning. Right.
It will fail miserably because Hilt also, I updated right away. Hilt also requires capped. A Kotlin annotation processor something. Capped T, I forgot. I also need capped plugin.
10.
Not here, but in this. So I will need to copy-paste that one. All right. So, they have copy-paste for capped. Good. So now, next, in APP, part of the build Gradle KTS module APP,
Should.
I need these two pieces here. These two. Capped and Android. These two. It is in plugin section. In plugin section here. All right. And there are also Hilt dependencies here and below in the file. So I need these two. But before I copy-paste, no, let's copy-paste. But we need to synchronize it after we copy-paste, definitely. Are you following? So these two go into dependencies. It doesn't matter where. Okay, let's put it before testing. After retrofit, before testing. Paste. You see, it is in red. So we need to synchronize it. So it will find out that it is fine. Now it is fine. And we need to copy-paste this piece. This will make arrows more meaningful. Arrows for Hilt.
Okay.
So paste it here. We also synchronize it, and it will be fine afterwards. Let's synchronize it. Oh, I pasted in the wrong place. Below everything, not here. It goes below everything. Now it's fine, you see. So let's synchronize. Hilt also updated to 49. Updated to 49.
So,
Okay. So I edit Hilt libraries.
segment.
Next. Are you with me? So let's do some branch, call it using Hilt. So let's open Git. They have a lot of branches, but the only useful one is main in our sense. So let's create branch from main. This is origin and main, this one. From that point, we have a new branch and call it, we are using Hilt. Okay, now we're using Hilt branch, and let's commit, edit the libraries, edit the Hilt libraries. Edit the Hilt libs. getter for builder file, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I would ignore it for now.
Sure.
Edit libraries, now let's edit code. Remember that when we use Hilt, we need to have application class. And when we don't use Hilt, we use manual injection, we still use application class, right? But when we use Hilt, most likely it is empty. Because this is used for fancy cases, for example, for work manager. But for access to internet, access to local database is not necessary. So we need to write
Left.
Android app on top of it. Or Hilt, 1 second. I forgot. No. Let's try to do. Hilt Android app. Hilt Android app on top of it. And it can be empty if we use Hilt. Done. It will, I'm breaking code because this stuff is probably referenced somewhere. So Hilt Android app on top of application class, but application class is necessary. This application class was previously added to manifest file and it's still there. So I'm not touching it. So they did it there. Next. On top of activity, I need to add Android entry point. So activity, main activity, and it will be on all activities if you have more than one, everything that is using dependency injection. If you have fragments that are using it, it's also there. Android entry point. Okay? Next. I need to remember that this project is creating necessary stuff, initialization, doing initialization of repositories for retrofit in the file called app container. App container is just a place where we store the stuff to refer to it, to inject it, for example, into view model. We don't need it, we will delete it. But we still need this code to tell the system how to create these objects.
Yeah.
So this code is used inside of a module. It's called module. So let's create class or object. Let's create object. I'll call it data module. So new, not Java, new Kotlin. Sorry. On data, I go new Kotlin class file. I select object, and I call it data module. This will be description how to create those objects. Here it is, object data module. Add to the source control, and on top of it, I think it's called is a Hilt module or whatever.
Yeah.
I have to look up, I forgot. There are two annotations that we write on top of it. One is just to tell that this is a module. Yeah, I think it is just module. And one more, it is the scope of the objects that we create. It is we will do it globally because it is simpler. In scope, it is singleton scope or something like this. So let's find out. What is called? Installs in. It's called installs in. Install in.
Anything called.
Singleton component. I forgot. I have to look it up. Sorry. Dependency injection with Hilt. So let's scroll it. Hilt Android app, done. Android entry point on top of activity, done. So you just go through documentation, check. It's brute force, okay? Scroll. Android entry point. This is on the top of activity, done. This would be, but it's not, Hilt modules. This is what I want. Module installs in, not in activity component. I wanted global activity, not in activity. Singleton component class, whatever. Okay, this one. Okay. Copy singleton component column install in singleton component. Column class. So I was close, but not quite right. I don't think order is important. So, but let's stay safe and put the same order as they did. Okay. And next, am I right? Object. It says for network, but we will just create one. So provides. Now we provide this. We create methods providing object using independence injection. And we also specify how many of them. One is good enough, so they all singletons. Singleton. Let's look up ABB container. So what do we need? We need retrofit object. So, and it is referring to this. So let's copy paste this piece as private variable so we can refer to it. So copy, go into my component, module, and I put it just here. Function provide retrofit. It doesn't matter how it is called. What matters is return type. Let's import this thing. Import class retrofit. And what do I paste from APP container? How to create it, right? Retrofit builder, blah, 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 this. Right? Copy. To the data module equal to paste. Here it is. Okay. So we provided instruction how to create retrofit objects. What next? We need also instructions how to create service. Okay. So we create function, provide retrofit service hotel. Okay. And what is inside of it? This retrofit create this one. Okay. So I copy this one. What does it need? It has dependency on retrofit object. So parameter of that function would be retrofit object. So let's go back to data module and create function provides singleton retrofit function provides service. Or retrofit service. Technically, it's API. Typically, it's called API, but whatever. Name of this function doesn't matter at all. Return type matters. What is return type? Let's look up. Return type is Mars API service.
Okay.
Mars API service. It needs reference to retrofit object in order to make it. So we need to have a parameter retrofit. Retrofit. And how to make it? It is what we copy it, paste. Retrofit create, and this is interface. We also need provide singleton repository, right? Because repository is injectable into view model. So this thing provides singleton provides singleton and function provide, and how it's called? MarsPhotos repository, right? Provides repository. Yeah, let's call it provides repository just. But this is return type. Provides. It doesn't matter. Repository. What does it need as a parameter to provide it? Remember that it needs API service, right? Mars API service. So service, Mars API service. Return type is repository. Paste that. And code is copy-pasted from that. So where it is, app container, this, just constructor call. Right. Network Mars repository, constructor call. Just constructor call. Retrofit service, it is just different name, right? Let's just call it service here. Okay. So we told the system how to create repository, and now system will be able to inject it into view model if we edit view model properly. Right? So next step is to edit view model. So let's go to view model and edit that part. Code, view model, Mars view model.
Yeah. Awesome.
So keep the state, Mars view model. This will be injected into constructor, right? This part. So we need to say inject, but we need to write inject in front of Ford constructor. So inject constructor. Here it is. But we need to also tell the system that it is HILT view model. HILT view model, it means created by dependency injection system. So on top of view model, we write HILT view model, and in front of constructor, we write inject constructor and the parameter. Okay. In a more complicated case, we can create other constructor if this constructor doesn't fit for some reason. Okay. And now let's see why it is in red. Because I deleted containers, this is why it's in red, right? I deleted containers inside of application class. Remember that I deleted content of application class, right?
Yes.
But definitely we don't need this factory anymore because we're using HILT. It is creating factory automatically. So at the bottom of view model, we get rid of this factory stuff. It's gone with the mistake also. And also,
It's about
we need to edit GUI because GUI is still referring to the factory at the bottom that we just deleted. So remember that our Mars Photo app is referring to the factory. This part, reference to the factory, is not necessary if we use health. This should do the job. Let's see. So let's synchronize the project. Since we did it a lot, let's synchronize the project.
maybe this may.
We'll check that. We don't need app container anymore, right? So let's see. It's still referred to somewhere. Default app container is not used. App container is referring to this within the same file. So we can delete the file.
But
It's not used. So I delete this file. I deleted app container. Okay. So let's run this project.
the record.
Remember that this is application file. I deleted container, default container in the file, but I still have imports. So let's get rid of these imports. We don't need those imports anyway, right? Let's try to do it again, run.
Anyone is but
Yay! Let's see. Is it stuck? Maybe I'm... No, it's not stuck. It's working.
all.
So let's commit. Commit. No, not here. It is this commit button. Converted code to using health. It's a code to using health. We shall commit. How to deal with this issue? I want to post the reference to Slate because definitely, why not, right? It is still linked to a repository of Google, right? So I cannot push my update to Google for obvious reasons. I don't have login to the repository. For this reason, I need to create my own repository and push updates to that repository, right? So let's try.
Teach.
This is the repository, so let's try fork them.
Get
MarsPhotos, let's fork them. If it will work, let's try. Create fork. I will call it MarsPhotos Android. I already have MarsPhotos Android. It is, I did it a year ago, probably.
That.
I need to delete that one. And there's no point of having it because it is the same code but with all the libraries.
Negative.
What I will do, I will just create MarsPhotos Android, just MarsPhotos. After this, I will delete that MarsPhotos Android and rename this to MarsPhotos Android. This would work. So, is available. Copy main branch only, this is fine, create fork. Next, I need this copy. I need to push it to my repository now. So, git converted code using shield. This one. It is this one. Okay. Push, but not origin. Define remote. Control V. This one, mine. Okay.
That's it.
Could not add remote origin already.
Good.
Back way. To do anything.
Why it couldn't?
So,
Define remote. Let's see.
yep.
Okay. Cancel. I shouldn't use origin. Build to scale to git
So the,
remote
mm,
remotes manage remotes plus fork.
oh,
Control V. So I will create, instead of origin, I will have another version called fork. Okay. Fork. Okay. Next, using hilt, push, change origin to fork. Using hilt, push. So I pushed that using hilt. All right. Now let's push main to that. Main, push, also not to origin, but to fork. Push. Reload.
what's your thinking?
Then,
I have main and using hilt branch. What is in main? Branch is up to date with okay. This is my main.
Dungeon.
That has updates of my Gradle files, hopefully. Build in app. In app Gradle. KTS.
Adam.
No, it's not mine. I changed this. No. I didn't change serialization. I changed it. Maybe I need also to change serialization to stay consistent, but it still works. It's interesting. I used hilt with 1.8 and it works now. Previously it was asking for 17.
Why to put on?
No, this is older version. It's not my code. It's original one. Let's see if it is push it actually. Okay. I need to push local, not that one. Did I commit main?
It's good.
And
I didn't change main at all. This is why it is the same.
I mean,
I remember what happened. I explained the code from Google, and after this I said, let's create code branch Hilt using Hilt. And I started updating libraries directly in the Hilt branch. So main branch is just the same as Google. I didn't touch it. So this is why it is the same. So my code is in using Hilt branch, MarsPhotos, this. Okay. So I promised to rename it, right? But before I rename it, I need to delete older one. So your repositories, MarsPhotos, MarsPhotos. MarsPhotos, Android, security. No, settings.
why?
Delete repository. Yeah, I want to delete it. I really don't understand it. Delete repository. Confirm it. Gone. Now I want to rename this thing. Settings. Android. Rename. Yeah. And now I will post this to Slate. So you can clone it, and using Hilt will contain my latest code. Good? Yeah. In main, it is just original code from Google. Didn't touch it. So copy Slate. Where's my Slate?
That
Shade on Slate.
should that should be
This section, content,
should
create link, paste, MarsPhotos copy, paste. Here it is. So this is main branch. It is original code from Google, and using Hilt, it is what we did in class. I will stop recording, and we're about to finish. It's time. Okay?